Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Patrick Kenny, and I'm a business development executive here at Cohesive Solutions. I want to thank everybody for taking time out of their day today to join this webinar and discuss what's new in Maximo 7.6.0.9. A couple housekeeping items to get out of the way. Initially here is this webinar is going to be recorded. It will be placed up on our website in the resources section, and we will also be sending the link to this video out after the discussion today, so that if you have any questions related to the content or what you see today, that you can reference that in the future. And as always, call me or send me an email, and I'd be happy to help answer any questions you have. If you have a question during the webinar and presentation today, please type it in the chat window there so that we don't lose track of those questions. And during the Q&A after the presentation, if we do not have time to get to those questions, I'll be sure to follow up with you individually and make sure that all of your questions have answers. So without further ado, we'll kind of jump right in. I have a few slides up front that I want to cover to kind of set the stage, if you will, and then spend the majority of my time actually in the product, showcasing the new capabilities and features that are being delivered. And I think that you're really going to appreciate and enjoy what IBM has been delivering. Now, the main points of this webinar today are going to cover work centers, because the 7.6.0.9 release focused heavily on improving those work centers, and we'll get to looking at that here in a bit. And so what has IBM been focused on lately with their feature pack releases? And the answer to that question is really the work centers. And so what are these work centers? And for those of you who have had the chance and the opportunity to work with them, you'll probably understand what we're going to look at today. And for those of you who haven't seen them, I think that you're going to see quite a different kind of Maximo experience. And you can see this slide titled Modernizing the Maximo User Experience. And so what IBM is seeking to do with these work centers is delivering a simplified user experience to certain users and personas within the organization, so that when they log in, they can have access to the data that they need, when they need it, and perform the actions on that data, and then move on to the other tasks that they encounter on a daily basis. And so hitting a couple of the high points here, I'll describe to you what really work centers are. As I just mentioned, they are role-based. And today we're going to look at the work supervision work center. Then we'll look at the work execution work center. And then after that, we'll look at a couple of the things that they've added into the inspection work center with this latest release. Now, the responsiveness of these work centers is really one of the neat features that IBM's introduced with these, and it's based off of Google Polymer and HTML5. And what they've done is essentially, regardless of the device that you're accessing the work center on, it will adjust the display accordingly. So if you're using an iPhone, or you're using a tablet, or you're using a laptop, it's going to adjust the display to present in a way to where you can navigate, and you can take action, and you can look at extraneous data, and you can basically do everything that you need to do. And there's no required configuration to optimize that display to fit your unique device. So as you can see, there's quite value in being able to log in regardless of the device and have the application understand what the dimensions are and adjust accordingly. So when you're using it, there's no can't see certain areas of the screen or have to zoom in. It's very easy to use. One of the other points that I'd mention is the intuitiveness of these work centers. They were designed in a way that require minimal training, and that by simply logging in, you will be able to take yourself through the steps to actually perform the functions that you would need to perform. And I would imagine that IBM has taken the design approach, much like application development has occurred today and is occurring today, in that majority of you probably have a smartphone, whether that be an iPhone or a Samsung. But when you go and download an application off of the App Store, you download it to your device, you log in, and you can use it to a large extent with all of its features and functions without having to reference any type of training material, without having to call the developer to understand how certain functions work. And so what I think IBM has done a beautiful job with these work centers is designing them in a way to be congruent with how other applications are being delivered to folks in today's world. And we're going to catch a glimpse of that here in a minute. So this is a screenshot of your traditional classic Maximo work order tracking application screen. And I show you this to show what the classic version of Maximo is. We're all familiar with classic Maximo and how that's evolved. But then I'm going to show you this next slide. This is the work centers. And so what you're going to notice when we get into these work centers is how IBM has taken the traditional Maximo screen, not to say it's being replaced, but delivering these work centers in a way that kind of optimizes the data that you would have to usually go in and look for and understand before you can complete your tasks. And so back in June of 2016, IBM introduced 3 work centers. So this was kind of the initial release of work centers to the public. And they released the business analyst work center, they released the work technician work center, and they released the work supervision work center. And so here's a brief timeline of kind of where we started and where we're at today. And so back in, like I said, 7.6.0.5, we had those 3 initially delivered. In 7.6.0.6, we were introduced to the service request work centers and the data set designer. And in 7.6.0.8, we saw new security access for work centers. We saw the introduction of inspection forms, which we're going to look at here in a bit, the conducting inspections, the improved navigation between your work center and your traditional Maximo login screens. And then obviously today we're going to cover 7.6.0.9 and what benefits and features have been delivered in this 7.6.0.9 release. And so with that, I'm going to jump in to this work supervision work center. And so now I've logged in, I'm a supervisor, and this is what I see when I log in. And if you're familiar with what has been the view in the past, you'll notice that right off the bat, we see quite a different redesign of the initial versions that were released in 7.6.0.5. And so really what I'm looking at here, I'm going to talk through these various aspects and we'll dive into what this all means here in a second. But you'll see here across from left to right, I have these 4 what I'll call containers. I have this approve work container, this assign owner container, this monitor work container, and this close work container. And now within each of these containers are what we'll refer to as cards. Now these work centers are based off of the card-based UI. And so each of these cards represent a record in Maximo. So this is a specific work order in Maximo and its accompanying location, asset, information, whatever it be on that work order is going to be displayed on this card. And we're going to dive in here in a second. But you'll notice on this card, I have these approve actions here. And in the assign owner, I have the select owner. So as I move from left to right, from approve work, assign owner, monitor work, and close work, I'm moving through the progression of a work order. And these blue actions in here are what we call the primary actions when looking at these specific containers. Obviously, the approve work is work that needs my approval, that I have supervision over. The assign owner container is the set of work that needs to be assigned out, whether that be to a specific owner or a specific owner group. The monitor work is it's already been approved and it's been assigned, and now I'm just monitoring it. I'm understanding, you know, how is my team doing with these specific work items? And then the close work obviously is looking at any work that has been completed by the technicians, and in my queue to then review for potential closure if that is the case. On the top left up here, you'll see these three buttons. This is your left-hand navigation. So in your traditional Maximo instance, you'll notice, you know, on the left-hand side, we'll have that navigation, the hamburger icon or the search function. This is much like that. And when I log in, I'm going to be directed immediately to the work progress view. I have a closed work view, and I have a work creation view where I can go in and create new work orders, and more to come on these here in a minute. You'll notice that across these different container sets, I have the ability to search. And this search functions much like Maximo's traditional search function, where I can type in a search feature here and it returns back the card with those values on it. Now, the only restrictions at the current time with this search function is that I can only search on attributes contained on this card, with the exception of the scheduled start. I cannot search on those start dates. You'll notice in here I can have the ability to sort, whether by priority, by work order. I can move that around to be ascending or in an ascending or descending order. And another point that I'd like to mention here is this multi-select feature that I have. Now on the laptop, I'm going to be able to just hover over it and select. If I were to want to approve these work orders in mass, I could select these four records here, come up here to these more options, and simply click approve work. I'm not going to do that. On the mobile device, if you're accessing it from a phone or a tablet, you'll be able to get this multi-select function by what's called the long press. So if you're familiar with the iPhones and the touch sensitivity, whether you press in firmer than you normally would, you'll get a set of actions. It'll function very similar to that. So let's go ahead and look at one of these cards to understand kind of what we're looking at here. So we'll drive into this particular card and work order, and you'll notice here I'm presented with this screen. Now at the top, you'll see this CP 1040. The CP is the work type. So if this was a corrective maintenance work order, if this was a preventive maintenance work order, it would be prefaced with that CM or PM. In this case, this is a capital project work order, and then it is followed by the work order number, this being 1040 here. Now at the top right, you'll see this approve button. This is that primary action that I was just referring to. And if at any point during the review process, I'm the supervisor, I'm looking at this piece of work here, I've reviewed it, it makes sense, I can simply come up here, click review, and move that through the queue to then be assigned and monitored and closed out, like we talked about earlier. At the top here, you'll notice across the top, I have different tabs. I have the plans tab, the comments tab, the attachments, and the reported work. We'll get to that here in a minute. Here I have my description, big hole for new service pole. So this is the description of the work. And this is editable just like you would be able to edit it in your traditional Maximo application. I have a long description here that I can come in here and put in a long description if I needed to. This long description does support rich text editing, so I can have that ability here as well. Now, looking at this screen here, you'll notice these boxes, the status, priority, asset. This is what we call tiles. So these represent fields in the classic Maximo user interface, but in the Work Center world terminology, these are referred to as tiles. And so across from left to right, you'll see the various fields that are on this work order that I'm being presented with. These are all editable. I can come in here and you'll notice it brings me a lookup based off of the status domains that I have available in my system, and I can come in here and adjust those accordingly. The asset and location relationships are reflected the exact same way they're reflected in classic Maximo. As you can see here, if this had a parent work order, it would be reflected here. If it had an originating record or like an SR, that would be captured here as well. Moving down the line, you'll notice these little blue chevrons to the right. This allows me to collapse any sections that I don't need to be working in at the current time. So you can see that's a very good function in terms of condensing down what you're looking at. So I have scheduling information here. I have scheduled start and finish, and I have target start and finish, as well as durations. These are all editable. If I come in here, I can open up this calendar, make the adjustments as I see fit, and save it if necessary to make those adjustments. Responsibilities, I have reported by, I have the reported date. I can see this owner and owner group. I'm going to leave owner and owner group blank at this time because we're going to get into assigning ownership here in a second. And you can see here, obviously, I'm signed in as Ed. I'm the supervisor of this work. That's why this work has made it into my work supervision, work center, and queue for me to then review and take action on as necessary. The last section down here on this work supervision work center is these work order tracking functions. Now, if I were in or reviewing a work order and I needed to go look at any failure reporting or report downtime, I could then click into these. And what this is going to do is launch me into that traditional Maximo view, take me directly to this work order where I can then put in any data that I need to at that time. The only tile that is missing here, if the asset did have a meter attached to it, it would have that function as well. I'm going to move over to the plans tab. You'll notice here I don't have any plans. I can add them. Let me see if I can find a work order that has any tasks and labor. So here's a work order that I'm looking at. This has 2 tasks. You can see these tasks are very similar to the classic Maximo, although they've been streamlined down to present a more redacted view of specific information, task information related to this unit of work. If I wanted to come here and add a task, you can see how easy it is to add a specific task. I can associate an owner and owner group. I can status it. I can change the duration as well and save that here. So when I click add task, it adds that new card in here to the task list as part of this particular work order. If I move over to the labor tab here, you can notice that I have a couple labor records here. In this current release, I cannot select labor at the laborer level, but I can select it at the craft level. So if I wanted a carpenter here, I can simply come into this magnifying glass and change it there. I can adjust the hours. I can adjust the rate and quantities as necessary. So you can see how easy it is to manage the labor on this particular card. I'm not going to save this particular card. Let's see here, 1 second. So I'm going to come back into this 1042 work order, and we'll look at the items and materials tab. Now, I don't have any items and materials for this particular work order, but let's come in and add one. So you can see how easy it is to add an item or material. You'll notice in here I have the ability to enter that item number that is being pulled directly from the catalog in your Maximo system, and I can identify here whether this is an item or a material that I'm adding. Let's call it an item. The other cool feature at work centers is that I have this type ahead feature. So if I know the particular work center or storeroom, excuse me, I can type that storeroom in here, and you can see that it's gone and fetched that central storeroom. Once again, that is coming from my traditional Maximo system. You'll notice in here that the relationship between the central storeroom and the items in that storeroom is still maintained. So I can come in here and find the specific item that I'm looking for and add it here. These can be task specific, so I can add them to specific tasks if necessary. And this more details function here flips me over to the back of the card where I can adjust the required dates, as long as the reservation types, whether it be automatic or a hard or soft reservation, depending on when I'll need that material or item. And then I can save this item for this work very simply by clicking save. And I need to adjust the required date really quickly. Can view today. So let's say I need it next Friday. Can save that item to the work order record. And I successfully added that item here. So you can see how easy that is. If I move over to the comments tab, so this is kind of the chat interface, if you will, the log tab from traditional Maximo, but it's now the comments tab within the work centers. And this has kind of been designed in a way to be reflective of your more modern chat function. So if you're familiar with Facebook Messenger or things of that nature, iMessage, it's a very easy way to come in and add in any comments that you need to add. And this is then communicated to whoever is performing the work or involved in the work, that you can communicate right in here. Now, one of the interesting features about using this on the mobile device, whether that be your iPhone or tablet, is that it does support voice to text. So if you're one of those people where you like speaking into the phone, you like using Siri, or you have other things going on and it's easier to just talk into the phone to capture what it is you're trying to communicate, it does support that feature as well. If I move over to the attachments tab here, you can see I can add attachments. Now, if I'm on my iPhone or I'm on a tablet and it has a camera, when I go and click add attachment, it is going to natively launch the camera function in that device. And I can then snap a photo and save it very easily to that particular work order. If I come over to the reported work, this is where any labor time, any items and materials that were used as part of this work are going to be captured. Now, I'm not going to obviously report any work here, but this is going to be important when we move to the work execution work center. You'll see how these relate to one another. So if I go back out to my work progress view, let's just take a quick peek through the evolution and the progress of a work order. So let's say I've come in here and I know what this particular unit of work requires, and I've taken a look at it and I just want to approve it. So I can come in here and I can click approved. And what that's going to do is that's going to then move over to my assigned owner. Because if you remember correctly, I didn't assign an owner or an owner group when I was in there looking at the details of the work order. So now you can see it's made it into the assigned owner queue. And so now I'm going to come in and I'm going to assign an owner to it. And I can come in here and you can see I have 145 folks that I can assign this particular unit of work to, but I'm going to assign it to Sam. I know he's one of my technicians here, and I think he has some availability, so I'm going to go ahead and assign it to Sam by clicking that here. And so now I've identified the owner on that particular card. Now it should be over here in my monitor work container, which it is. And you can see here, I can pull this up. It's been approved. I can look at the owner here. Sam is the owner. And this is where I can track and monitor the progression of this work as it makes its way through the necessary functions. Now, if I come over here, this closed work, I'm going to look through these closed work views. So if I wanted to look at a history of all of the work that I've closed as a supervisor, I can come in here to this closed work view and I can query on that here. Now, the default is for this to show the last 2 weeks. However, I can change that, and based off of what I need to see, I can then monitor that as well. And lastly, the last view on the left here is the work creation view. And if I wanted to come in here and just create a work order on the fly very quickly, I can do that. I can type in the description of the work. I can select the type of work. It's a corrective maintenance work order. And then I can click add details here. And what this is going to do is it's going to take me right into that card where I can then go in and start identifying what assets and locations I'm performing this work on. And you can see here it pulled that asset right up. So that's the Work Supervision Work Center. Now we're going to take off our Work Supervisor hat and we're going to log in and look at the Work Execution Work Center. Logging into this Work Execution Work Center, you'll notice I've logged in as Sam, the individual that we just assigned the work to. But you'll notice that I'm directed straight to any overdue work that I have. So on the if I'm a technician and I'm logging into my work center, I'm directed right to any overdue work that I need to take care of. And you'll notice along the top here, I have a view for any work that is due today. So based on that schedule, if I had work that was due today on the schedule, that would show up here. I can take a look at what is going to come due tomorrow based off of those scheduling dates. The next 3 to 5 days, I can look at all of the work that I've completed, and then I have a view over here for, of course, all of the work. The search functions in here function exactly like the search in the Supervisor Work Center that we took a look at, and the sorting as well. So I can come over here and look at scheduled start, status, work order, priority. So let's take a look at, let's open up one of these cards here and take a look at what's going on. So I've come in here, and now this is my view of this particular work order, this corrective maintenance work order. And this is what I'll look at if I'm a technician logging in here. So I can see that it's been approved. I can see the priority. The asset's been identified, the location, and here are the scheduling information for this. I can see who my supervisor is for this piece of work, and any failure reporting, downtime, and GL account information, much like we saw in the Supervisor Work Center. Across the top here, you'll notice the primary action as a person performing the work is to start the work, and we're going to get here in a minute. And also, I have the ability to report work here. The plans. Let's find one. Here we go. So here's a work order that has tasks on it. Now I can simply come in here and I can take a look at the task. I can go about completing that work, and I can come in here and simply click complete task. As easy as that. But I'm going to come out here and take a look at the different way to perform that work. Come over here. So this is the work order that I just looked at. Now let's say I wanted to start the work. I log in, I can click start. What it's going to then prompt me for is this travel time? Am I waiting on materials? Or is this actual work time? So I'm going to say this is actual work time. I click the start function there, and you'll notice that I'm then presented with these two different options. So I'm now started the work, I'm doing my work, I can stop it here. If I was interrupted, something came up, I can simply click stop here, and it's going to ask me, do I want to change the work order status to complete? I can say yes if I'm done with all the work, or I can say no, stop only, and record that time when it was actually stopped. And I can come back to that in a future time when the other item that had come up is taken care of. Now I'm going to start this again here, and you'll see I'm going to actually just go ahead and report work. So this is, I've logged in, I've clicked start. Now I've completed all of the work, and now I'm going to go in after the fact, and I'm going to calculate and add in any time that I worked, as well as any items or materials that I used for this particular work here. So you'll notice in here, when I click stop on the right-hand side, I have these regular work hours. It actually calculated a minute there when I started it, when I stopped it. And then it has the ability here, I can add time that I worked. And let's say I worked 2 hours from, say, 2:30 to 4:30. I can save that. And you can see it threw an error there because I reported the work that occurred in the future. So let's back up and say I did this work from 6:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m. So I can come in here and save that. And it should post. And now I've captured some time there. If I go over to the items and materials section here, I can see that I've utilized all of these particular items or materials. I have the ability to come in here and actually add any unplanned items or materials that I need to. So let's say I had a material that I didn't have as part of it, but I ended up using. I can come in here and enter quantity here, cost. I can say if it was an issue or return here and save that like so. And it's not playing well, but that's how easy it is to come in and add an item or a material. And now if I want to complete the work order, I'll simply come in here and select complete, and you'll notice I'll get that message at the top saying that that work was indeed completed. And you'll notice over here that I've now completed that work, and it's now flowed into that supervisor work center that we just looked at. So that is, you've seen the work supervision work center, you've seen the work execution work center, and now we're going to take off our supervision and execution hats, and we're going to look at some of the inspection capabilities that were delivered as part of 7.6.0.9. And so I'm not going to cover in depth all of what can be done with inspections in this presentation today, but notice that there are videos out there on the web that you can Google. There are great videos on how to build out these inspection forms, but what I want to pay attention to today is the improvements that have been made from 7.6.0.8 when the inspection work centers were initially delivered, and what we're looking at today in 7.6.0.9. And so I'm logged in here. There's two flavors of inspection work centers. There's the inspection supervisor, the person who creates the inspections, makes sure that the inspection forms are accurately built so that the people actually performing the inspections are collecting the right data they need. So I'm logged in here as the person that's managing these inspection forms, and this is kind of what I'll see here. And I can search my different inspection forms, but one of the improvements that's been made in 7.6.0.9 relative to inspections is this view of the history of this particular inspection form. Now I can click into this inspection form, and I can see all of the revisions that have occurred, when they've occurred, and you can actually associate reasons or updates why you're revising particular inspections. Now I'm going to go back to the form library here, and I want to highlight some of the improvements along with that revision history that have been made. So I've created this inspection form. This is a vehicle inspection report. Everybody's familiar with vehicle inspections. When you go and get your oil changed, or you go in to get your car looked at, they run through a certain inspection series of questions to collect that data to make sure things are in proper functioning order and to be made aware of anything that might need your attention here. So what I've done is I've created this inspection form already, but I'm going to highlight some of the new things that can be done with inspections. And the first thing that I'm going to highlight here is the introduction of meters and capturing meters as part of your inspection forms and your inspection process. So it's really simple to come in and add a meter reading to your inspection. You'll see here in the asset data form response fields, you'll go in and create the question, and you'll simply click on meter reading, and you'll see here that I've typed in check the vehicle dash and enter in miles. It'll then prompt you to ask what meter would you like to use. Now these meters are being driven from the meters that exist in your Maximo system today. So if that meter doesn't exist in Maximo, you won't be able to use it here. But since I already know that that meter exists, I can simply start typing and it'll show me I have this odometer reading in miles right here, this meter that's already been created. It is a continuous meter. The unit of measure is miles. I can make that required or non-required as is to my process. So you can see here, I have the ability to attach meters as part of the inspection forms. The other improvement that's been made as part of 7.6.0.9 is that I have the ability to attach files, whether they be pictures or drawings or permits or things of that nature. I have the ability to come in here into this inspection form, add a question in, or add an item in the inspection form for media. I click file upload here. It brings me to this. I can then select, well, what kind of file is this going to be? This is going to be a photo. Is it required or not? And I can add the ability to take pictures as part of this inspection. And so if I'm on an iPhone and I'm collecting this asset, this inspection information from a mobile device or a tablet, once again, by clicking add attachment, I will be able to launch that camera natively, capture that photo, bring it back into the system, and attach it as necessary. So those are a couple of the highlights of the things that have been introduced in 7.6.0.9. And what I wanted to do is show you guys the improvement of the integration of the inspection work centers into traditional Maximo. And if you remember from 7.6.0.8, the tie really wasn't there. You could go in, you could create the inspection form, you could complete the inspection, but if you were to go into traditional Maximo and look at the asset record, you wouldn't have a history of anything that's gone on against that particular asset. And so what I'm going to show you here is the improvement of that integration and the development of that integration into traditional Maximo and how you guys can use that moving forward. So if I go into the assets application and I look at any particular asset that I'm performing inspections against, and this is one that I've created previously, I can come in here to the actual asset record, and I have a couple options here. The first thing I'm going to show you, I'm going to collapse these down, but the first thing I'm going to show you here is this manage meter reading history. So I'm going to click into here. And you'll notice that I have in here these meters that have been collected as part of the inspections. And so you can see here that I just collected these. Well, I didn't show you guys that. I will show you that because I think it's important to see how easily these meters are captured. So I'm going to complete an unscheduled inspection. And I can see I just searched that asset that I was looking at in traditional Maximo, and I'm going to use that inspection form that I've created here. So I'm going to start. And so this is what it looks like when I complete inspections. And so I'm going to hide the optional questions in the effort to get through this in a pretty timely manner here. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to answer these questions that are required. And you'll see here this oil color. Now this is a meter that I've created as part of 7.6.0.9, and I'm going to say it's clear. So I've captured that as a characteristic meter right through this inspection form, and that's going to be reflected, as you'll see here in a minute, in traditional Maximo. Review the odometer information. So I'm going to come in here. I looked at the dash, and I'm going to enter in the meter reading. As you can see here, this please take a photo of any damage. I just noticed that this truck that I'm inspecting does have some damage here to the back right, and I can take a picture here and upload it just as easy as that. So I'm going to go ahead and complete this inspection form. You'll notice here one of the neat features that was also added was the ability to create a follow-up work order. So I can create a work order right here. Right after I've completed my inspection, I noticed that something else needs to be taken care of. I can create the work order right from this inspection form, and that will be reflected in Maximo as well. So I'm going to exit here, and I'm going to log back out and pick up where we just left off in traditional Maximo. So if I once again go to the assets application in Maximo and I look up that asset that we just performed that inspection against, and once again I'm going to come in here, I'm going to go look at the meter reading history. And you remember that 3,000 that I found on the odometer there on the Ford truck? You'll notice that I just captured that right in here. And that oil color that I just captured, it's right here at the top. You can see I just captured it a couple seconds ago, and it's been reflected here in Maximo as well. One of the other great features that's been added was this integration of looking at what inspections have been done against a particular asset. Where do I go? Now, if you're familiar with traditional Maximo, you understand how the assets and locations applications have this view work details where I can go and look at all of the work that's been performed against this particular asset in this particular location. Well, you'll notice in 7.6.0.9 here, the introduction of this inspections tab on the far right. And I can come in here and I can look at all of the inspections that have been completed against this particular asset. And you'll notice here at the top, the inspection that I just completed was captured here as well. So I can come in here and look at all of the history of particular inspections that have occurred. And you'll notice here, I have also the ability to, if I was curious, well, what was going on with this inspection? I can come in here and drive straight from traditional Maximo into this inspection record and look at all of the data that was captured for this particular inspection. I also have the ability to create an unscheduled inspection directly from this asset application. So I can come in here and click create, go down to unscheduled inspection. I can identify the form that I want to use. I can identify the due date. It's due next Wednesday. Click OK. And you can see up at the top, the inspection form has then been generated for someone to go out and complete that inspection. And you'll notice in here, if I come into the view work details, I just created that inspection, right? So what I'm seeing here at the top, I can see a record was just created by me in a pending status and the date that it was created. So that tie is once again been made there. So we've looked at kind of what's been introduced in 7.6.0.9, the ability to create an unplanned inspection, capture that data, capture that meter information, the pictures, everything that has been captured against it. And so what I'm going to look at now is planning inspections and what's been introduced as part of 7.6.0.9 on the planning side. So if I wanted to come in and create and plan for inspections, I can do that. Now, I've already come in here and created an inspection job plan for this particular asset that I'm looking to plan inspections for. I've come in here and I put in a description here, and you'll notice as part of this job plan, I can identify an inspection form. This inspection form that we've been working with as we've been moving through this presentation here, I can see that inspection form here. I also have the ability at the task level to associate an inspection form as well. And so I come in here, I create my job plan, identify the asset and any other information here, and I'm going to come in then to the preventive maintenance application, and I'm going to create a PM record for conducting these inspections. Now, everything in Maximo that consumes a job plan, because we've just attached that inspection form to the job plan. So everything in Maximo that consumes a job plan, routes, condition monitoring, PMs, I can use job plans with inspection forms to create a work order. So I've created this PM. This is a monthly PM here. And so as you can see, I have my asset that we've been looking at here. If I scroll further on down, I have the job plan that has that inspection form as part of it here. And so I can create and generate these work orders. And so what I'm going to do is I can come in here and I look at the time frequencies here and the meter frequencies here. I'm collecting those odometer readings, so I have the ability to generate work orders based off of those as well. But I'm going to come in here and generate work orders for this PM. And you'll notice that this inspection, this PM inspect created work order 1205. So let's go have a look at that 1205 work order that was just created. So I created the job plan, I created the PM, I've just generated that work order from that PM. You'll notice it's brought in my job plan, the inspection job plan. I have the inspection form that is part of that, as well as the inspection result. So this result will then be picked up by the person performing the inspection to be completed at that time. And if I click into this, it's going to load up here, but you'll notice that I have the asset here in the background, a monthly 5,000 mile vehicle inspection, the PM that it was generated from, and the due date here as well. And so that's kind of a look at the new inspection features. And so you can see how great of an improvement it was to be able to actually make that tie into traditional Maximo. And so we've looked at work supervision, we've looked at work execution, and we've looked at the new work inspection work centers. And that's going to conclude kind of what we're looking at today when we talk about 7.6.0.9 and the improvements for work centers in particular. And so I'll open up the floor to any questions at this time. And I hope you guys enjoyed what you saw. I hope you're excited about the delivery of these work centers. I know that we've come a long way from what was delivered in 7.6.0.5, and these work centers are gaining tremendous momentum as they evolve. And I know for a fact that there are more work centers in the queue to be developed for specific areas, inventory, purchasing. There's going to be some interesting things that continue to be developed. And so I'm excited. I'm excited about the direction that IBM is taking with these. I'm excited about the value that is created from the great design of these and the ease of use for those in the community that are using work centers. And those of you that haven't gotten a chance to take a look at the work centers, I'd encourage you to go out to the Maximo preview site, and you can simply find that by typing in your search bar Maximo 7.6 preview site. And the first link that you're going to see here is the one that you're going to want to click on. And you can come in here and launch into a sandbox or dev environment, free to use. You'll notice down here you have the usernames and passwords. So I'd encourage you to get in, get your hands on these work centers, start playing around with them, understanding them in a greater detail, and see if they can help you and make it easier for you to do your daily tasks when working with Maximo. And like I said, as always, if you have any questions or concerns or anything that I can help out with at all, do not hesitate to send me an email. My email's here. Call me on my cell. I'd be happy to help you guys out with using these new work centers. So with that, thank you guys for attending, and we will talk soon. Take care.